folks, Dino Bob here with another episode of Bettatu Park. This time I'm going to start with a little bit of a cinematic of some of the things I will be building today in this episode. Viewing platform into the habitat, and as we zoom into that uh, platform, we will be headed toward the other and more significant structure built for this habitat. Um, you see a lot of vegetation here. You will not see it going in because that video didn't seem to come by. I've been planning on starting with a shot like this, showing the terrain painting I had done and terraforming to prepare for the habitat. This is always a sketch, sometimes a very detailed sketch, but a sketch because necessities of where things have to be, what the animals want to do, um, how the terrain plays with the plants, the rocks, the animals, all can force changes in some of the details. Uh, I decided to start by putting temporary blockage across this passage. We don't get gates yet in the game, and this is where the gates for the keepers would be. I'm planning an airlock gate so that the animals could be brought back to their care building and shelter, which I have not yet built. Uh, I suspect they will end up sharing it with animals from other habitats, not sharing individual quarters, but sharing basically the same roof structure. Uh, as is common in a lot of builds, I decided to start by laying in the hardscape, putting in the rocks, and that's where the video cut out. Uh, so onto the rough layout, I had put the plants in, I even put the animals in, and checked to see if they would go away. And then I threw that uh, white concrete wall up because they could walk out right there. And it was always only a temporary. And so here you saw me, I think, change the color, or maybe this picked up after I changed the color. But the temporary fence is still in place. Uh, One of the things that sometimes happens in beta, particularly if you've got a build that is off the squared off grid, things drift a little. They don't always want to snap into the correct position, and they don't always uh, shift correctly. Some of it's probably me not getting them perfectly lined up when they look lined up, and you don't see it till they get quite long, like this beam here. It You can see me struggling a bit with it and now duplicating it to make this sort of sunshade uh, thing. And boom, yeah, trying to get the right length. And then when I went to change it for this slightly curved section, things didn't quite line up in a number of ways, including that extra frame I duplicated. Uh, in timber framing, we'd call that a bent, uh, even though it's not a complete bent, it's sort of a half bent. Basically one set of support structures for the building as a whole. So you're going to watch me do a little bit of fiddling here, trying to get this all to play nice with itself. Down below there, you see the information sign that I cribbed from the I think originally the Protoceratops exhibit. Um, it might be Nasutoceratops at this point. Um, and that, of course, will have to change because Nasutoceratops is, yeah, it is Nasuto. Nasuto is not in this exhibit. So I decided to put a stone wall there to make this information wall a little bit different and use the rough stone from the modern theme for that. And I wanted the color to reflect the rocks in the habitat. Um, it didn't quite match it, but that's one of the things that seems to be happening all the time as you go through different materials in the game, even if they're nominally the same kind of materials, like the concrete pillars are always off from what the concrete pavement does. So there I am capping it and lining the sign up and then getting rid of nested ceratops, showing off yet another kind of glitch when you have a bunch of things selected and use the demolish button on the tool palette. Uh, Not everything goes away, and sometimes you have to hit a thing 2 or 3 times to make it go away, which is pretty annoying, and I hope it's something that will go away when beta turns into alpha. Now we have jumped over, during the landscaping I had laid out this bamboo floor section for this viewing pavilion, um, mostly to complete the path and get it over the gate area. So I wanted to go with kind of a rustic theme here, the bamboo flooring, just because I wanted to try it as a flooring and see how I felt about it. Um, but this open roof with a apparently wooden roof, I'm going to recolor it later, and these plinths that have timber uh, on top of them to be the posts, and timber also for the beams, getting things to line up and not duplicate too many times. Uh, and the idea here was to set up one, again, essentially a bent, and be able to drag it over. And that worked out pretty well until I decided I wanted to add more elements to them. Uh, and that resulted in some fussiness. So there's the more wood colored top, and I decided that overhang was just a little too long. And this is the start of those extra pieces that should have been done in the bent from the get-go. I just decided it looked too plain. It also, I could see, didn't have enough support to really do the job for a building like this. Um, so I added these other pieces. All of the elements of the wooden frame there is made with the same piece, just having its size adjusted and its angles and placement adjusted, um, which is pretty nifty for working. You don't have to go chasing around to find that exact piece that's the right length, or oh, it's not quite the right length, duplicate it 2 or 3, 4 times to make it the right length. Just stretch it out for a lot of the pieces. Some don't play that nicely that way. And for those, you will often have to duplicate them multiple times. Um, so I was having trouble managing to get a good angle to do the work that was necessary and be able to see what I was doing. Um, but that's inherent in working inside of structures. Um, anyway, um, I wanted to keep this mostly open. This is a, early to mid-game kind of animal. It's a 3-star animal. So budget is potentially still strapped. There's a fair bit of budget going into this exhibit as it is, between the structure there and the other viewing area, and all the terraforming and landscaping. I wanted the backside to be solid because that will keep our guests from seeing too much of the backstage part of the park. Um, and they'll have to work to get a look at it, um, or just not be able to, um, which just seemed appropriate. Um, and trying to do all of this without getting it to be too complicated or too complex. um, to keep that simple, more rustic vibe going. Uh, yes, this is the struggle to get things to play nicely with the pre-existing path and follow it along and keep everything lined up. Um, so Styracosaurus is a really neat animal. In the game, it's not going to be reflecting reality just because of the constraints of the way they have to do the animals. Because it turns out that Styracosaurus has a very highly variable uh, set of horns around its frill, or spikes, or whatever you want to call them. But they're not always the same number or lengths between individual animals. And in at least one case, not even the same number on both sides of the center line of the animal. Um, so uh, hard to put in the model, but neat fact about the animal. Uh, I wanted to install classic catch things that are going to fall when the guests get excited and or malicious and drop them over the railing. Um, so that's the mesh grid adjusted in size, and that those same post piece is making these little smaller elements that are forming the structure that holds the grid, including that really long one that runs on the outer edge. Um, in keeping with the simplicity, I wanted to minimize the lighting in here. And I think I ended up putting the lighting after I finished cutting video. Um, oh well. And I didn't think to get a shot of the thing at night with the guests using it. Uh, but what I did was run a set of floor lights along the back wall, up the ramps and across the thing, and then put a smaller number of those floor lamps up near the railing, but shifted their light to red to denote a nighttime lighting that wouldn't disturb the animals. Uh, so having originally done rocks to line the passageway there, I decided I would make it part of the building. And you can see me shifting and getting rid of rocks now because they're pieces I don't need. And there are more than enough pieces in this build as it is. I will eventually come back and either put in functional gates if we get them, or some equivalent to that with a nominal gate. Um, Once I put the walls in, I needed to replace my temporary fencing structures because they were no longer were the right length or in the right place. So yeah, I think this is coming up to the end of the build of this viewing platform, and therefore for the video as a whole, we'll have a couple of cinematics, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, do hit a like. Subscribe if you have watched several and are still interested in seeing more. And make a comment. All that stuff pushes the algorithm, lets more people find this stuff. Anyway, it was nice to hang out for a while in Prehistoric Kingdom. Hope you guys enjoyed the chat. And I hope I will be back next week with another video. Um, this is being cut well before its release because I'm having to free up time for real world stuff. So, yeah, there's our Styracs. They walk slower when they go down the slopes, which is kind of neat. Uh, and now they're all leaving. So I guess that's my cue. Thanks for stopping by. You all take care and be kind to each other.